right, welcome to episode 3 of this salvaged solid body, and we are starting to really move ahead here. Now in this episode we are going to be putting some wiring in. We are going to be setting the intonation while we are working with the three-dimensional puzzle of where does the fingerboard go? Does it need to be taller or shorter? Do we need to do anything with the surrounds around the pickups? And we're about to figure out when we put a truss rod in here, all of this has to come together, and is there some secret hidden thing that caused someone to set this guitar aside that we don't know about yet? And this is where it all comes together, where you learn maybe that's why it became a wall hanger. But if nothing else, we're going to learn something in this episode, and the best part is it will be at my expense. And where you at, chick flick teal pointer? Not yours. Let's go to the bench. Okay, let's catch up. There's a ton of stuff we want to talk about. First off, you have to ground strings. So I got the wiring run through this guitar. You can tell by the pots are here. The three-way switch is sneaking out there, and I've got everything run through here. You do not want to forget to ground the strings. So I have stripped back this pushback wire, and I've popped this out. There's some shims in there. So what I will do is I will wrap this like so and drive this back in here, and that way the strings will be grounded to the bridge and the saddle and all of that. And then this, of course, will run back into the cavity, and then I've got to run some other wires for Gibson 57s that I'm putting in here. These came out of a 2001 Epiphone. I did have to do some work on these surrounds, and I think you'll be able to see on my channel somewhere on one of my Instagrams, I took a piece of tape and put how much I needed to take off, and then built this little sled, if you want to call it, where I could just put a piece of wood tape to the top and then take these to the belt sander and work in this way without tearing your fingernails off. I'll try to remember how to show you that. Anyway, those are ready. Wiring is run. We're going to ground that. Next thing is when you're putting binding on something that's had a rough finish, or you're taking on another project. By the end of this, I'm going to share with you what this is. You're going to be completely and utterly disamazed. But you're going to have some spots where the binding isn't just perfect. So when you're scraping binding, you want to save some of the shavings like this, okay? And keep them clean and label them as two. If you get this binding from a certain manufacturer and something else from another using scraps, keep those separate, because you can take this and you can take some acetone, which vapors off. Always remember that. If you're going to leave this open, it's going to drift off. It's a spirit. So once you mix some of this with some of this, you're going to end up with what is basically a binding repair epoxy, like that. And you want to get the right consistency. And again, if it's a little too thin, you just leave this open for a little bit, or if it's a little too thick, you can add this in. But you can basically put acetone and this shavings together and get yourself some putty that you can goop on. Now you'll see right there I have filled a gap in the back, so I'm going to take a razor blade and I'm just going to go along the edge there where I want the binding to stop, like so, and then I'm just going to lay the razor blade like that. You see that? And take that off, and then of course I can take my scraping knife and come along like this and very gently even that out. Now I've done that in a few spots here and there, so that's how you do that. Let's get that out of the way. What else do we have? We have our pots here. They're in, the surrounds are around. Yeah, let's talk about the neck now and the fingerboard. Maybe I need to change my camera angle. Okay, we want to remember that this guitar came from a store window. The fingerboard was done, everything was done, and then for some reason the truss rod got stripped out of it, and so there was some work to do there. Alright, this is a pretty cool camera angle. I won't tell you how I got it, but I've got this vise here, that lets me do just about anything I want. Now it's got a groove in here that will hold your truss rod blank without marring it up, and then you can use a vice grips or something on the back side of it. But what I have done here is, I kind of showed you this before, I've got a good tap or thread cut or whatever you want to call it, and I have put enough threads on this, as you can see, to thread this little stop. This is what will hold it in the channel on the neck, and then towards down where everything connects to the body, this goes on. Now I'm going to want to put some Loctite on here, because here's what we don't want. We don't want this turning backwards and unthreading or anything like that in the guitar. So we're going to get this where it's all the way up against here. We're going to put Loctite on it like so, and then we're going to do something that they used to call peening, which is taking a metal chisel, don't use your wood chisels, and putting it on here like this, and then smacking it, and you're basically mashing the thread so there's no way that anything can come undone. Okay, now I want to show you, I have put a spot in here with a chisel where this right here drops in right there like so. You see that? And I've also got this washer right here. It's going to slide down. You see that? That is going to need to go up at the top behind the nut up here. Let me flip this around and show you here. Yeah, now if I don't have something up here that is going to stop this from sliding back, nothing will tighten. So I'm going to bring this all the way up here, which means I need to cut a slot that will drop down into. Now if there's any slop back and forth here, I'm going to fill that with shim material. And something else I want to tell you is, if there is any slop down in this channel where when you're tightening this, the channel's too deep or too wide, what is going to happen is you're going to lose a lot of threads on this before anything happens. So I want to put whatever I need down in here. Let me show you what that might mean. I have cut a piece of mahogany that will fit down in there, and I've got a couple more to do, and that will take up, I want to take up as much slack as possible, and I want this to sit here, and everything needs to be tight. Now I'm going to pull this up to about here and widen it out only enough for that nut, and then I'm going to come in along the side. Let me show you the mahogany again. Anywhere where I have room where that nut is going to butt up against, I want to reinforce that and keep this really tight. those truss rods that they have that sit into a groove that are enclosed, those are pretty good because they take care of a lot of the concerns I have here. And so what we've got here is there was a height problem with the fingerboard and where the pickup height and the surrounds are going to be. We talked about that a minute ago. So we'll put this on here, and I don't know, can you see this over here? Of course not. Let's move this around a little bit. There we go. So now I've got enough room with this mini nurse ratchet straight edge, very heavy, and I have ground down the surrounds and got everything where everything will be right, and I'll give myself a little bit of room because plucking strings and stuff, you don't want anything hitting this, and of course we haven't put the nut on or adjusted the bridge yet, but everything is perfect the way that is sitting now. So what we did to get here was I put a 1/16 rented lips edge of mahogany on here, worked this down, and I've got a piece of the same type of mahogany underneath the truss rod and on top of the truss rod. We're not going to glue any of this, but I don't want anything rattling, and I do need the truss rod when we start tightening it. If you've got slop in there, not only will it rattle, but it takes a lot of adjustment if everything isn't shimmed up. I'm not going to glue this on here. I'm going to glue this onto here. I have to go along and scrape this and make sure that my fret work is good and all that. Notice that this is pretty cool. Instead of having fret markers, it's got this wire that's coming wrapped around, and it seems to end right there, and it points to where your fret markers should be. When I asked the person, again, you're going to be surprised at the end of this, how this happened, they said they were putting binding on a fretboard one time and it was draping over and it just hit them. Wait a minute, that can be my fret marker. So we'll see how the feedback comes from the person that's playing this, but this gives me the height I need. Now, let's talk about the headstock. This is kind of funny. The headstock is thick. Let's get back up here. Maybe we'll zoom in a little bit. Check this out. When will you see this scab together opening? I think I'm going to leave it like that. I like that. We've got the license plate, the Mississippi 1974 license plate that can code out to Tammy's birthday, and there's a set of Grover Imperials on there. If this isn't juxtaposition of cool and junk, I don't know what is. But we're going to get together with a glue bottle now, and we're going to get everything set up. Now you want to remember one thing here. Let me zoom out, the other zoom out, and we'll spin around just a little bit. Okay, the bridge is here. It's tilted a bit for intonation. So what I want to do is I want to find the point in the center right there on the bridge, because we know that intonation is set by going from the back of the nut to the 12th fret and then taking that measurement and going to the center of the bridge. Now, if I'm moving this like this, do you know what this much will do to your intonation? Well, of course, we can adjust it in the bridge, but I really, really want to take these settings, put them in the middle where they go. Okay, guys, one more time on this neck and fingerboard and intonation and all that. You can tell we've had a lot of work done in here. You can tell that this thing will slide all over the place. You see that? So, real simple. Take any measuring device. Doesn't need to have numbers or anything like that. Anyway, you just have to have an end and a piece of tape. Now, these frets have fret markers that are kind of interesting. Again, this was put on here, it drapes up here. The end of the wire serves as a fret marker. This is the 12th fret. You see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my measuring device against the end of the fingerboard, the top end towards the tuners. And I am going to find the 12th fret, and I am going to take a marking device of one type or another. This one has a chisel end and a fine end. Anyway, I put that there and I make a mark. Now you're going to see that there are numerous marks because I've done this with other guitars. Now, the trick to this, to intonating this properly, is this mark should be at the center of the bridge. Now I can set the intonation individually on these, but this isn't working. Why not? Well, because this is moving. You see that? So what I will do now is, I know that this was the end of the nut, and I know that this is the middle of 12th fret, so I'm going to take and put the end that was at the nut on the 12th fret in the middle, like so, and then I'm going to move this forward or back. I want you to watch this spot right there. I'm going to move this until that mark is right over the center of these two string holders. That right there, my friends, is how you set intonation. Now, if I didn't do it this way, it could be off this way, that way. Of course, again, I could take and adjust it out of it, but why take adjustment away? Just like why let a truss rod be sitting in here flopping all over the place when it can be solid and start off your adjustment the minute you start turning that nut up there. You're saying, hey, you just moved everything, so you're going to have to do this again. Of course, I know that, but it just shows it's already perfect. You see that? Sometimes I even completely and utterly disamaze myself.
Traveling on, old boy, don't forget what you've been told. Well, I've been studying rain, just drive my blues away. Drive my blues away. That drive away. I'm far away. Oh, I'm driving. stay there.
Okay guys, this thing is getting beefy. It was heavy to begin with, but now we've got a big block on here and we've got the neck glued on. And I hope the takeaway for you here was at some point you are going to discover why somebody abandoned a project. And you want to think, is the person that you got the guitar from, is their skill set just seem to be superior to yours? Or are you walking into something that maybe you can fix through a little ingenuity or whatever? But the big problem with this guitar is that the angle of the bridge, you compensate the bridge by understanding that some of the strings that are like a 56 are way bigger than something smaller, and the difference between those is your ability to pitch the bridge just a little bit. Now, if you have a bridge that you can adjust like this Tune-o-matic, that's a good thing. So we're going to let this dry up, and we are going to, well, let's just say it's getting really close, and the next time I see you, I will basically have this done. And I will tell you where it came from. We'll get the whole story about this. And then I think we're pretty close to getting it off to someone that is going to really like it. And anyway, I'm dying to tell you. You probably have figured it out already. But anyway, I'll see you when we close out this next episode. We'll hear some sound out of it from somebody that can actually play, and we will see the rest of the junk piling. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe. See you next time.